to Mark and Sam after work. Today is another episode in our 4AW school, or our video series to go through and explain a fair bit, or as much as I can, about the way we do things in the way of finding accuracy in your firearm, in your long-range precision is what we're talking about, but really a lot of this stuff applies to all forms of firearms. In front I have the rifle I just had out shooting. It's nice and short the way it's set up at the moment. It is a custom chassis. It has a Chinese scope on it. It's just what it is as what I was last shooting. It was what we had here in safe, so I thought, okay, it's something to have the conversation. It's also nice and short to fit on the fact this is an overview video of starting to point out where things are, I suppose, the rights and wrongs, or what can make accuracy, what helps and doesn't help in the way of starting to construct a list of what's going on with looking for accuracy, with where you're going to find it. And I suppose I'll start with the U end, the us end of the firearm, and that's down the back here with the butt pad side of things. And that's, I think, the best way to work through with this particular video. We'll go from tail to tip, but basically down the butt pad side of things. Been through it many times. It's something that's always worth reiterating. For people who haven't seen, it matters a lot to understand how important the butt of your rifle is, and in not just one place, in multiple places, but how important it is. And I suppose it starts with a fundamental understanding of what's actually happening with a firearm, and it involves Newton's law. It's basically the simple thing we're talking about is that when you load it around, you have a round in there, you got it on target, you pull the trigger, it goes bang. What happens is you spark and you heat up the gunpowder. That turns into gas. That gas ignites. That it creates expansion, and that's where you actually have superheated gases that are expanding rapidly that push your bullet down the barrel. Your barrel with rifling in it, and there's all these sorts of other bits and pieces we'll get into as to that getting out here. But the big thing that matters is the amount of energy you have that is forcing that projectile out one side is also forcing straight back down the barrel. So there's a line of force, the bullet's going this way, the round's going this way with all the gas and everything, and there's a line of force that's coming straight back from that point. Now it's attached to, in various forms, to the stock, the chassis, wherever it is, but that line of force is still a direct. If you had someone with a big steel pole on the back here and they whacked it on the end, you've got the same force that's pushing back here. So that ends up with, essentially, out of the back of your bolt, straight back down from another rifle, there is a line of force coming through there. And without getting too complicated, if you were pushing down here and that line of force is there, then the rifle is going to do this. If you're pushing from up here and the rifle's going to try and duck under. So by and large, our rifles are set up to where we tend to have our shoulder with all the bits and pieces, low scopes, or however the butt pad is, classic hunting stock, that you'll tend to be below that line of force. So you'll tend to find the muzzle rises. It's as simple as that. That's muzzle rise. Most people would call it recoil, and they expect the gun's going to go up because of that. It all comes down to this line of force. You end up with a line of force and you're directly on the line of force, it's going to go straight back. There's other things you can do, and I can get into that, but ideally, for the first fundamental of it, trying to make something behave where the rifle moves in a consistent and straight fashion, immediately opposing or resisting where that line of force is, it'll stay flat. So butt pad height becomes the issue here. So it's not just butt pad height, of course, it's where you contact, and I'll get into that. I use my collarbone, and for prone shooting, that's, yes, where you'd use it, even with a big heavy 50 BNG, that sort of stuff, you use your collarbone. That's lined up with the line of force. So then you end up with the first fundamental of making the rifle behave consistently is covered by doing that side of things. Now, there's other things go on with this. There's the weight of the rifle, there's muzzle brakes, there's all sorts of other things that can change this in one form or other. But that's a fundamental, simple fundamental. Lined up to that line of force, it's going to then behave straight rather than move around us with all the other details involved. But like I said, that's a fundamental. And that's why you see on this, once again, this is all custom. It's a bits and pieces rifle, so it's not trying to be a brand name by any means. But having the butt pad up at that height starts with that situation. So the other things that are relevant in this situation is there's a strong structure between there. So there isn't air spans and weird things in the back of in the butt stock of the rifle where things can fold and bend. And even though you can't see it when it actually is happening under a lot of force, a nice strong structure. It doesn't need to be full rigid, but a nice strong truss structure that means that's all going to behave in a straight form. And that will give you this first fundamental of the line of force thing. The next things that go with it now in precision long range shooting, having something to help you. Now offhand shooting, that's a different deal. Some of you, whether it's the multiple position sort of stuff, it can be a different deal. And you'll also tend to find your accuracy that you're trying to attain in those situations is different. Where 2 MOA is fine for quick shooting and offhand, and 1 MOA or 1.5 MOA is fine for setting up off a barricade and shooting there. That's still fine, your target's in that sort of stuff. And when you're down to 1/4 MOA, then you need something to help you stabilize the whole rifle. Down the back end, that'd be your bag rider. So a bag rider works obviously with a system to sit it in that works properly. I'll get into this later on, but the likes of a squeeze bag, that sort of stuff, they help, but they don't create the consistency that you're actually chasing for the 1/4 MOA, 1/2 MOA consistency you need for precision long range. So good bag rider is first fundamental of that. I won't get too much into it at the moment. And then having it at a decent length and a decent height so that it can actually be used on your rifle effectively with the type of bag you have are very important. Adjustable cheek rest, is almost always very important. Obviously, just setting it up to where it suits you is relevant, but this will get into when we start talking about things in the way of scope heights, and this is also about getting your shoulder at the right height. You have a really low cheek riser and a really low scope, you might have a high butt pad, but you end up where your shoulder's pushing down here. You haven't effectively done anything. So getting it all up means all this stuff has to work in position to get to that place where your shoulder's in the right place, and always keeping in mind that comfort, contorting yourself is not where consistency and accuracy comes from. Anyway, that's enough there, and I'll get more into those finer details of understanding that sort of stuff in later videos. Anyway, that's where I'll leave that one there. Thanks very much for checking in, and we'll catch you next time.